So the first question I have for you is how and where did you find wrestling, and in what way would you say it's impacted your life?
Um, that's a very good question. I was I was a football, basketball, baseball kid. I grew up playing those sports, but I followed everything my older brother did. He's 3 years older than me. I looked up to him quite a bit, and my dad became a school teacher halfway through our my middle school career, maybe as I was going into middle school, and he we ended up going to a public school. And when we got to that public school, my older brother got, picked on a little bit for being heavy
Mhm.
set. And he got picked up into wrestling. One of his best buddies are like, hey, you need to go out for wrestling so you can, build some confidence and change your body a little bit. And so he did. And then just like a little brother would always do, the next year, my dad started the middle school program. I wanted to wrestle, and it all happened from there,
Yeah.
real quick. Um, Love the sport. I was little. I wasn't very big. I was only 68 pounds in sixth grade. I never cut weight in high school until maybe
Mhm.
my senior year, a little bit. And so it was just the passion of competition, getting out there, not relying on anybody else, but also if you lose, it's your fault. And so I liked all that type of stuff, and all the other sports just slowly went away. A little bit had to do with my size, but more importantly, just the fight that you have to have in wrestling. I just fell in love with it. And so, um, yeah, and I think it's just changed my life because it's all I do now, right? I love it so much that I want other kids to have the same opportunities I do, and I did, and I want them to have that family atmosphere that my college coach gave me. I want them to have those same opportunities, and it just teaches you. It teaches you life. You literally fall down 100 times in practice, and you have to pick yourself back up. And so it's life in a nutshell right there. And so I think it just fit me really, really well. And I had the passion to just stay with it. And now I want other guys to have that same opportunity.
No, absolutely. You mentioned the things it teaches you, and it really does expose you to a lot of adversity, especially at a pretty young age,
Mm-hmm.
middle school, high school, AAU, or wherever. And it really, I think, even though yes, losing does suck. I don't think anybody
Yeah.
lose, but you need loss in a way, and
Hmm.
you need kind of setbacks to grow from. And if you go through all the adversity, put forth all the effort, I think for the winning aspect of things, that makes winning a lot more sweeter. When it's not a consistent thing, which in
Yeah.
wrestling, it could very well be back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it teaches you a lot. I think it teaches you how to become a man. You're
Hmm.
going to have adversity, and so not just through loss and wins, but how to just stay in it, not giving up on stuff.
Right.
It teaches you so much. I mean, Jordan Burroughs is going through it right now. He just put some stuff out that is just gold that you can read on his Instagram, and it's just about his loss and how he has to represent his family. And his little son is going through it too, and they're going through it together. And he's got to show him how to be a man through those processes because Jordan Burroughs has won a lot, but it still stings whenever he loses. I can guarantee you that. So it's just wrestling is life, and then you nowadays you don't see that in athletics very much, and so that's why wrestling's so special.
No, yeah, and a thing it teaches you as well is how to really, not let the loss hang on your shoulders and just figure it out because there's a certain feeling about walking off the mat after losing, especially a big match, and you're replaying in your head, and you got to be like, hey, we got to figure this out. And
Yeah, it goes two ways with that. It goes, you have to have short-term memory, but you have
mhm.
to learn from it, right? And so you can't dwell on it for too long, but you got to get better in that same moment. And so it's a double-edged sword, and it's what makes wrestling so unique and awesome.
Oh no, and to kind of quote, Mike Sutherland a little bit, he's made a very good point that I thought more about, and it really does live up to it. With the AAU program, you may find a kid who wins 30, 35 or so matches. He's doing great. And then you may get a kid who is winning a match and may lose two more or so and so. But he tells his people, he's like, the kid that's going through the most adversity is having a better setup than the kid who's going through,
Mhm.
the going through all the wins right now.
Mhm.
Because you look at I think Kenny Monday wrote this. He shared a picture, the first wrestling club he's part of, when it was at the YMCA, and he's like, I got beat up by everybody, but one of the coaches just told him, he said, just keep coming back, and he said, I did that, and I look back on that picture when he qualified for his first Olympic team, and
Mhm.
you just keep coming back. You trust the process. You endure the hardships and everything. It'll the day that day in the sun will come around.
Yeah, I tell my guys all the time, there is a bucket of tears in Camp Randall's football stadium because that's where our wrestling room was at UW. And just my frustrations of day to day, getting taken down by a third string 141 pounder, and I'm a starting 49 that thinks he's going to win a national title. And everybody goes through those moments. And it's, hey, the next day is a brand new opportunity.
Right.
So just get your butt back in there, fix those little mistakes that you're making. It's not life or death. Just go to the next one. Just go to the next one and just keep coming back. And like Kitty Monday said, man, it does pay off. It really does. One way or another. It doesn't always happen to show out in wins. It could be just something in your life, and it could be anything. You just don't know when it's gonna, you know, take advantage of.
Oh no, absolutely. And the benefits of wrestling are very unique because they connect through, like you mentioned, just life in general. It's past wrestling, you know,
Right.
because there's one day, and I've stated before, especially on here, that you're gonna take off your shoes. It's gonna be the last match or the last practice,
Hmm.
but you'll still be able to apply what you learned from that to go forward in life, be a better person, and be able to benefit yourself on and off the mat.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you mentioned UW. That goes into my next
Mhm.
question. After finishing out your prep career, you made the choice to attend the University of Wisconsin. What made you want to pick the University of Wisconsin as a place where you wanted to continue your academic and athletic career?
It's a great question. So I wasn't highly recruited, and it's a different ball game nowadays than it used to be. There's way more. Uh, you can see a lot more, right? You can,
Right.
you can go watch more tournaments, and you can talk to kids sooner, and all those types of things. Flow Wrestling does a great job of being able to see matches of kids, and it rarely do kids not get seen,
Mhm.
but it still happens. But I wasn't highly recruited. I only won two state titles. I didn't really place in many national tournaments until senior nationals my senior year. But I was getting recruited by a couple, and then um, there's this guy in Kentucky. His name's Garrett Headley. He
Mhm.
told Barry Davis, "Hey, watch this kid from Kentucky. He wasn't one of my coaches. He's just a guy in Lexington area, and that's about 45 minutes from me. He's like, just watch Kyle Ruschell at senior nationals, and just see what you think. He's pretty tough." So I did decently well at senior nationals, and that's when it was just senior nationals. There were no juniors, sophomores, and
Right.
freshmen, so it was a big highlight. I took third place at 112, 112, and so I was a little guy. And Barry fell in love with me, and I got a few more phone calls. Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio University, and VMI were my five choices to go on visits. But ultimately, I went to all those places, and Wisconsin was just it was special at the time. The class ahead of me was the number one recruiting class in the country, so it wasn't going to be a big exodus. Michigan actually had that where they had three or four guys leaving that next year, and so
Right.
um, it was just a good fit for me. Coach Davis and Corey Wallman was the assistant coach at the time, and Bart Chelsevik. They all treated me with respect, even being a kid from Kentucky that nobody knows about. They did a great job, and I just fell in love with Barry Davis. If you meet him and have the opportunity of talking to him, he talks a million miles a minute,
Right.
but he's a genuine person and he loves his athletes, and that's what I kind of mold my college coaching experience from now, and I want my guys to have that same stuff. And so it was pretty right when I met Barry and the team. It was pretty much made up, but I was very lucky that somebody knew Barry in the state of Kentucky and gave gave him an insight on, hey, this kid's pretty tough. I know I wasn't the best. I talked to some of my old teammates here, Zach Tonelli from Columbia. He We were talking about it, and he's like, "You were terrible when you first got to college." I'm like, "I know." But just like we were talking about earlier, you just stay in the fight. You come back the next day, and you get a little bit tougher, and you get a little bit better, and you just never quit. And so, yeah, I liked my choice. I'd do it all over again. But I would definitely do it with all the same guys I had to, because it was a lot of fun, and we did a lot of winning.
Oh yeah, no, I think the experience, especially from going to that next level, are really, really one of a kind. And that kind of ties into my next question. What was it like adjusting to that college room, especially at first, just the atmosphere and the practices and the teammates and everything?
It's hard. I didn't really get beat up too much, especially through my high school career, middle school a little bit because I didn't start wrestling till sixth grade. And um, my first practice, I remember being in the wrestling room, and our assistant coach got poked in the eye, and he's screaming down on one end and started just kicking the butt out of whoever he was wrestling. And then Zach Tonelli and I were going to first practice, and he hits a single leg sweep single on me, a lefty. Didn't see many of those. He lifted my leg up almost over my head, and he smacked me across the face and tripped me so hard within the first 20 seconds of the live go. And I'm like, none of this has happened in like 4 years. I have no idea what the heck is going on. And you have to take some humble pie. You have to eat it. And I got my butt whipped for a long time. But all the guys are great. They help you get better. There's always some little trash talking here and there, but guys like Tom Plum, he was a two-time All-American. He wanted to go with me 2-3 days a week because I never quit. And
Right.
I probably wasn't a great drill partner at the time, but he knew that he was going to get my best and I wasn't going to quit on him. And he showed me the ropes of, hey, you just stay in here, you do these little tweaks. This is going to help you in college. You have to stay a little bit more basic. You can't be rolling all across your back, those types of things. And before you know it, you just continue to get better and better.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then it also has to just be the priority. Wrestling has to be the priority. Somebody told me after college, there's three things you can be good at when you get to college as an athlete: athletics, academics, and social life. And if your
Mhm.
social life's the top two, you're not going to be any good. And so that just resonated with my lifestyle. Is those were my two main priorities, and I wasn't going to let the third one get in the way, no matter what it was. Whether it was a girlfriend, whether it was out doing things not the right way off the mat. Those two things, academics and wrestling, were my two main priorities, and nothing was gonna step on that.
Well, no, and you mentioned adapting with the priorities, and I think that's a good point because especially when you get to college and you have that free reign,
Yep.
you see a fair amount of people that are affected by that. And
Hmm.
when you're exposed to just the open atmosphere of partying, hanging out with people, staying out late, and stuff like that, which is not always a bad thing, but when you have a lot of priorities, especially as a student athlete, it I think it's best to kind of shy away from it, unless you're able to do a really good job at moderation or things of that
Right.
nature. And
Yeah, I don't think that too many kids know what moderation means right now, and so they find out real quick what that looks like, and they get hit right away with you know uh, what it really means to be good in college,
mhm,
because the older guys, they know that a little bit better. They know what to do a little bit better, and they'll let them know, like, hey, you can't be doing this stuff.
right.
And they'll either find their avenue and where they need to be, or they'll be gone. And then it's a sad thing, but it's just what needs to happen.
Well, you mentioned, some of the older guys looking out for, say, the younger freshmen or sophomores or whoever. I think that's a very underrated thing, especially in the college scene, because sometimes, man, as a freshman, you're walking into new territory, and especially in a college room, a D1 college room at that, it's a scrap every day.
Right.
There's people you're constantly having to prove yourself with how much of a tight ship that it can be.
Hmm.
And Jeff Ruffalo mentioned when I interviewed him, he said when he first got to UTC, a lot. Some of the upperclassmen took a liking to him, kind of took him under his wing, and he got a lot better, through that
Right.
leadership and that exposure. So I think the upperclassmen who've been through the ringer before and are more adapted to that atmosphere, if they could help the lower classmen, you could see a lot more guys making it through and sticking around. You know,
Yeah. I think we try to make that a priority right away. So a lot of these freshmen are coming in over the summer now, not only to get good training in, but more importantly to get to know the guys on the team, to understand um, the atmosphere of Chattanooga wrestling, the
right.
atmosphere of just Chattanooga in general. And then that also builds the relationships with the older guys that they're like, hey, you want to come over and hang out? You want to play video game, or whatever it is. You want to grill out tonight? You want to have some barbecue? You want to go play volleyball? We try to incorporate the old guys with the young guys right away, so they have that relationship sooner to be like, hey, you can't be doing that type of stuff. It's going to catch up to you, because if you just say it without a relationship, it doesn't mean anything. So
No.
you have to build a relationship first, and then you can start holding each other accountable a little bit easier. And guys are going to listen to each other, because then if you're just mean and saying, "Hey, don't do that," you just seem like a jerk, right? And so we try to build that relationship over the summer and over the preseason through suffering a little bit together, but more importantly, just spending time. Last week before we left for Fargo, Coach Massey and I, we had the whole team over and we played sand volleyball together. We created teams and we had food, and all the freshmen were there, and it was very cool. And then you had some of the seniors say, "Hey guys, if you guys want to do anything over this weekend, we're going to go to a water hole and we're going to go jump in the water. Hey, we're going to go barbecue. You just reach out to us. We'd love to have you over." And that's just really, really important to me, because, like I said, Coach Davis did a lot of that type of stuff with us, and that's the same atmosphere I want. I want it to be a family atmosphere, because then you're going to fight harder too on the mat for each other.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And some of it could be as simple as playing a game for practice. I
Mm-hmm.
remember those 4:30 practices breaking out dodgeball beforehand.
Yep.
And I didn't participate a whole lot in the game, but it was just fun seeing the different, especially just different age groups mixing together
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
being competitive, but it being in a humorous way.
Yep. It gets pretty intense sometimes. And Coach gets, I have to pull myself out every now and again, just because I get a little too intense, because this is my competitive spirit. I want to hit everybody right in the face and let them know who's boss. But yeah, these guys they do a great job. And it really shows you the guys that have that competitive spirit right away.
Right.
Those young guys that they step in there, if they're in there throwing that ball and trying to compete with the older guys, you get a little bit more respect right away. If you're kind of just sitting back and being hesitant and wondering, then they're like, "Oh, is this guy, what's he like?" It doesn't always translate to wrestling. Some guys just aren't athletes, and they're like, "Hey, I've never really thrown a ball," and so it's just a good way to loosen everybody up, break the ice a little bit, and
Right.
have fun.
Right. And you mentioned competitiveness. That sets up my next question pretty much. Ultimately, while wrestling college, what were your goals?
Yeah, that's to me that's pretty simple. Be a national champion. And so when I was in seventh grade, my second year of wrestling, I was attending. I believe it was either Jeff Jordan's camp or Ken Cherto's camp, one of the two. I went to both quite often, and I didn't go to a lot of tournaments. I just went to a lot of camps, and somebody there was like, "You have to write your goals down, and you got to let everybody know." And I did, and that goal list sheet is still on my parents' fridge. It's like
Wow.
laminated now. It's getting more and more covered up by my son's photos that my parents have on the fridge than me. But that list is still up on that fridge, and national champ was one of them. A college coach was another, an Olympic champ was another. And I think you have to have small goals. I think one of them was don't throw your headgear. And I accomplished that after I wrote it down. Small ones, but also you have to have ones that scare the crap out of you.
Hmm.
And you got to constantly think, am I doing what it takes? And so my goal was to be a national champion. It was to be a starter. It was to be a Big Ten champ, and it was to be a national champion. And so the baby steps to get there. Did I accomplish the Big Ten and national champion? No, I was close. Was I satisfied with that? No, but I knew I did. I did what it took to get there. I just didn't have what it took on those weekends. I know I was good enough, but it was just a matter of you got to put it all together at the right moment. And so those are my goals. And I don't have any regrets towards them, but I always wish I had it. And so I think I was home the 4th of July weekend, and I looked at that sheet of paper, and it's just fun to see what a 12-year-old's mind is, and the goals, and some of them are still achievable as a coach now. So it's just really fun. And I suggest everybody write their goals. I talked to one of my athletes who just graduated, and he's struggling with a little bit of um, what to do now. It's like, well, you got to create new goals. Whatever you're about to get into, you got to create new goals, and you got to write them down and how you're going to get there. And it's the same thing with off the mat. You got to do the same stuff.
Oh yeah, no. And when it comes to accomplishing goals, I think kind of backtracking to what we said earlier, wrestling and the mentality you build from it really helps establish just accomplishing goals in the workforce and being able to get a lot of work done. And I think it's just thinking back, say, you're working late or something like that. You're doing paperwork you don't want to do, but you think, and you're like, hey, I got through so and so or this and that in wrestling. I can get through this, you know.
Absolutely. I think that's why a lot of people want to hire wrestlers, because we put our nose to the grindstone, and we just get things done, and we go and go and go until it gets done. And so um, I think it's a good thing. I think sometimes we have to know when to take a break, but people want to hire wrestlers because we just grind, and
Mhm.
that's a unique situation nowadays.
Oh yeah, no, you hear examples of people and former wrestlers being in, say, the final race for a job, and you got some guy who went to graduate school or wherever for it, and then you got the wrestler, and man, sometimes those employers be like, "I'll take the wrestler over
Yep,
somebody who's higher qualified because he knows he's going to work hard."
absolutely.
And I think that's a unique way of paying homage to the work
Hmm.
that goes into it. So, kind of transitioning from the competition side of things in college, when you made the jump onto the international scene, what was that like, and what was your mindset while competing on that scene?
It wasn't much different in my mind. I wanted to be an Olympic champion. I wanted to be a world team member. I wanted to do all those goals. I had a great example of that early in my college career. Donnie Pritzloff still wrestled, and he made the world team in '07. So through my sophomore year, I think he took bronze my sophomore year of college. And so he did a great job of allowing me to come on some of his training camps, overtime. So Sean Bourmet ran overtime down in Illinois and in Naperville, Illinois, and it's only a couple hours from Madison. And so we'd go down there, and we'd scrap with other guys in the NYC and New York Athletic Club, and I got a great experience of what that looks like. It was cool to eat well. All right. It was cool to train your body. It was cool to do all the recovery stuff. And it just gave me a good view of what it takes to truly be a champion.
Right.
And I got that really early in my career, and I had that great example, but also opportunities like going out to the Olympic Training Center and training and learning Kendall Cross, guys like that, and seeing what everybody else is doing across the country. But this was all before Jordan Burroughs and all those guys. It was Ben Askren's, and it was all those types of guys. And so I got to see how those guys trained and what it looked like. And again, it was cool to do the right things and not the wrong things. And then by the time I got to go overseas a couple of times, it was a great experience. I got to go to Russia twice. I got to go to Brazil twice, and I got to make friends with people I probably never would have without wrestling overseas. Like guys like Zach Ray and Reese Humphrey. Went overseas with guys like that, and I have a great relationship with them still to this day. And it was just a lot of fun. But the training didn't really change. You didn't have to train as long as hard,
Right.
because just through the year, college is a grind, and you have to have your body calloused up. Where in freestyle, there's moments, right? So like over the summer, you have to be ready for that. So but you don't have to train over winter as hard as you would over a college season. So the little
Right.
things were different, but ultimately you got to train your butt off, and you got to have recovery, and you got to eat the right things.
No, and you mentioned I wouldn't really call it a grade, uh, because it's not, but how the intensity of the training, it's not as much wear and tear on the body.
Right.
And I think part of it is probably because you're not weighing in as much, you know,
Right.
where college, you know, you're weighing in, you're wrestling close to 50 matches, at least about 20, 25 times.
Yep.
You know? And that can be pretty strenuous, to say the least. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're seeing that in college more and more nowadays too, where guys are only getting 15, 16 matches a year. I mean, when I was in college, I had 160 matches in my 4 years of college, not counting my redshirt year, my 5th year. And so I got 160 matches over 4 years, and now kids aren't even getting close to 100. And so yeah, I think you're seeing that hit college a little bit more because they want to keep kids healthy. It's a double-edged sword for me. I love the competition. I want to see guys compete more and more. I love the sport. I want to see matches. I want to see matchups. I want to see all this type of stuff. But I also know bodies aren't bodies aren't ready for 16 weigh-ins back to back to back weekends. I know
right,
they're not ready for 40 matches a year, college matches 7 minutes long, maybe more. And it is a grind. It hurts, but also, like, come on, wrestling is wrestling. I love to see it. And so maybe you need to go up a weight class and wrestle. So I don't know, it's tough, but yeah, at the senior level, you only weigh in 4 or 5 times a year, and so it's nice. But I wish I could see Jordan Burroughs wrestle more. I wish I could see Kyle Dake and David Taylor wrestle more. I think it's one of those things. It's one or the other, and we miss out on a little bit of wrestling because they don't weigh in enough.
right. Now, when you were, traveling through and wrestling on the international scene, was there ever a moment where you just kind of stopped and looked back, say, when you were transitioning to college, and be like, man, we've come this far?
No, I wish I would have. I really wish I would have, stopped and smelled the roses a little bit.
Mhm.
Whether it was through college, and you know, it's one of those things, you never reached your goal, right? And so my goal was to be a national champion. I took third, and that's very few people get that high. And I wish I would have, like, stopped and smelled the roses a little bit, but I'm the type of person who's like, yeah, that's great. I don't dwell on it. Um, I like to consider myself a little bit a pretty humble person. So it's like, oh yeah, I took third in the country, yeah, but it's also the next best thing. And so I wish I would have enjoyed it a little bit more, and just recognize those moments and live where my feet were at the moment. But I think that's also what gives me the drive for the next thing, and the next moment, because I'm a wrestler, and I don't dwell on it. I'm ready for the next big thing, and I'm ready to kick the next guy's butt. And so
Yeah.
um, I didn't, and I wish I did.
Well, it's a hard thing to do in some cases, especially when you have goals, and um, sometimes you may feel like, well, in a sense, you hear a lot of wrestlers be like, "I'll be satisfied when I reach that ultimate goal," you know,
Mhm.
and that's the competitiveness that goes into it. And there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, it keeps people going. Um,
Mhm.
you look at Dan Gable when he lost to Larry Owens in his final match of his college career. He was like, in the moment it sucked, but he can look back on it now and be like, I needed that loss to get where I needed to be, and that was
Right.
Olympic gold.
Yeah, I mean, look what he did in the Olympics. Like,
A
that's crazy,
dominant,
crazy stuff. Yeah, it's without that loss, he might have not won the Olympics. You never know, and your journey's going to be different. Everybody's journey is a little bit different. And
right?
like I said, I wish I would have stopped to smell it a little bit more, but I can look back now and just appreciate the moments and the people. Like, that's the relationships you build. I have great relationships with a lot of people. That's the thing I can look back and appreciate more than maybe the moments, is the people that were there with me, that we went through the struggle together. Or we
Mhm.
took fourth as a team. That never happened. That we got a trophy at Wisconsin, and having those teammates like that will be that group of guys forever. And it was a lot of fun.
Right. Well, kind of going in the last few minutes here, just all in all, when it comes to wrestling, coaching, uh, and much more, up to this point, what's been your biggest takeaway?
As a coach, it's a very good question. Um, man, I, I don't know specifically. It just in my mind, I go back to just the relationship. Relationships are huge, whether it's recruiting, whether it's coaching, whether it's coaching your athlete, whether it's building relationships with a coach, Ethan Reeve, and I know you've interviewed him.
Right.
I love that man. He's a great man. His athletes love him. Heck, I think there's about 3 or 4 kids that are named after the guy. And then the relationships you build as teammates and the relationships that you have, like meeting you and doing this. And this is awesome stuff. What you're doing for the sport of wrestling.
Thank you.
These are things that are super super important, and we have to have. And so, just building great relationships through wrestling is something special.
So you'd say that the networking aspect too is just really valuable and one of a kind, especially through the sport of wrestling.
Absolutely. Wrestlers in Business does a great job, but I think it's more unique with Chattanooga specifically than a lot of other places. You're a phone call or text message away from any field really, in the workforce, and somebody's going to wrestle or know somebody that wrestled in that workforce, and that they can connect you with the right people. And so I love Chattanooga because of that. It's a very niche little area, but there's a lot of wrestling and a lot of passion for it. And so we treat each other right, and we look out for each other. But I think that's a national thing too. But it's just really, really unique that Chattanooga is so tight with it, so small, and it's like, hey, oh, yeah, there's about 3 or 4 lawyers downtown. If you need an internship, one of my guys is doing an internship with a wrestling dad. And so
Right.
it's really, really cool and awesome. And that's, again, there's a lot of things that make wrestling special, but relationships, those things don't go away.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned the community in Chattanooga, and it's a very, like I said, a very tight knit community for wrestling, which is one reason personally, and I mentioned it before. I think the state tournament should be brought back to McKenzie Arena or
Yeah, I
somewhere
would,
in Chattanooga.
I would love it. I want to get kids on campus. Chattanooga is a very special place. It's very cool. It's unique. And so the more kids that are on campus, the better. That's why I love having the Southern Scuffle at McKenzie Arena too. So it would be awesome to have it back in Chattanooga. There's some hoops that you always have to jump through, and there's conversations that need to be had. But it would be awesome. I mean, we're the only Division I wrestling school in the state, so why not have the state
Right.
tournament there?
No, and I think in the long run too, like you said, yes, there is a process you have to go through it, but if you look at it, a lot more people, even if they don't have anybody competing, would be dropping in. That's what they were doing 15, 16 years ago when it was in McKenzie Arena.
Right.
It just
It'd be a lot of fun.
could be like, hey, let's go stop by the state tournament where, obviously now it's a little bit different, but I think it would be a great decision to have it back and it would continue to grow the sport, especially in the Southeast and the Tennessee area.
I'm with you.
Well, all in all, thank you for joining me. It's been great to get to talk to you and catch up and talk about Wisconsin and college wrestling and much more. And best of luck going forward and safe travels back.
I appreciate your time. And again, hey man, this is great stuff. And I think you've done a great job so far with who you're interviewing and how you're going about it. You ask great questions. And like I said, these types of things help the sport. So just keep doing what you're doing. And all I have to say is go Mox, baby.
Well, thank you. It's been great to interview the people I have interviewed, and like I always say before, big thanks to everyone who's been able to jump on and talk the sport and their story and much more. It definitely takes a lot of support and everyone, like the interviewees and much more. So it definitely, the sport and everything means a lot. It truly does. But alrighty, well, like I said, safe travels back and hope to see you around at some point.
Yes, sir. You have a good one.
All right, thank you, you too.